Yeah, great. This is great. Yeah, I'm pleased to do that. I love talking skiing, as you know. Uh, yeah, my followers and subscribers on my YouTube channel, a lot of them are campers that come to our camp annually and learn and progress with the systems we're using, PMTS system that is. And well, we're all striving to get to a point that's called the bulletproof short turn, right? And the bulletproof short turn is the versatile, like Swiss Army knife turn that once you have it, you can transform it into anything you want, and you can use it on steeps, chewed up snow, crud, if some people want to call it that, and skiing fresh powder, when there are no tracks, and it's the same turn, and it also works in the bumps. So, and 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 the thing is that there's a lot of YouTube stuff is the people go watch, is big carving stuff, with your butt on the ground and all that. Stuff is not practical on everyday stuff, right? Who's going to go out and ski that? Because it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a long time to learn, and it's just really not that applicable unless you got perfect snow. You got this. You've picked the perfect skis. You've got them perfect tuned, and everything is falling into place. And so that's where everybody tries to set that up on perfect corduroy grooming and get those shots of somebody skiing with really big angles. But it's what I call like show skiing. That's show skiing to make people excited about skiing, which is fine. That's good, but it's not something you get to do all day long because it's really taxing. It's really high energy, and it wears you out. So what our bulletproof short turn is totally different. It's a I don't want to call it basic because it is a very evolved high end turn, but it is your basic turn to use everywhere you want to go. And we achieve that by teaching the phantom move, which is the transition that uses the least amount of muscular force. It uses the least amount of your own energy, and it uses the slope and the energy you created from the previous turn. So you keep adding turn after turn with your own energy rather than fighting the slope and working so hard. So you can ski all day with the bulletproof short turn. And that's you achieve it by learning the phantom move first, which is the lift and tilt. Some people call it lift and tilt. When I first started using it, I called it a touch turn. So you touch your other boot to get your feet in place so you can balance and then start into the new turn. And I taught all my athletes that when I was coaching at the different academies and or race programs I had developed and was director of, and also as a coach. So very successful, and it's been very successful at our camps. In PMTS, we don't turn our skis. We teach you how to make the skis turn you. And that's a completely different way of skiing. When the skis turn you, you're not working as hard. You're following the skis. You're on top of them. You're in control of your skis. You're in balance over your skis. And you're riding with the ski.
Harald, the pioneering ski coach, former World Cup racer, PSIA National Demo team member, and best-selling author of Anyone Can Be an Expert Skier and the Essentials of Skiing. He built a teaching framework used by racers and now everyday skiers, challenged conventional instruction, and shaped how efficient skiers think about the start of the turn and the essential movements that drive skiing success.
Because it's so hidden within me. And that's why it's called the phantom move, because it's a phantom thing that you can't really see unless you know what it is. You're using the stored energy in the ski, you're using the gravitational pull, and you're getting the energy from the angles you had in the previous turn to help you flip over to the other side really early and get on those early edges. The phantom move is just a piece of the release that we teach in PMTS. And PMTS stands for Primary Movements Teaching System, which is the system that I invented. Practicing doesn't make perfect. Practicing makes habits. Only perfect practice makes perfect skiing. or efficient skiing.
Well, welcome everyone to this week's show. I'm here with it's Peter Stone here, host of the Harb Ski Academy, joined with Harald Harb. So, can you take us back to 1978 when you first developed the Phantom Move and the reasons behind it, and why? And then we'll get into why it's been so successful in modern times.
I'd love to go back to 1978 myself. I was having some good skiing back then, but yeah, the Phantom Move is interesting because it was a completely different way of releasing a ski from a previous turn. That's basically what it is. And you'll see I've got videos on YouTube about lift and tip your foot towards the little toe edge and things like that. And people watch that for the first time or see it and they go, "Whoa, what's this little toe edge stuff?" Or what's this all about? And because I'm showing it in a very basic entry level where you're just tipping one foot and stand. And what people don't realize is it's really funny when most of these people who make comments are ski instructors. They're confused by it because they haven't heard skiing done that way before, or it described like that you can do a beginning of a turn for a beginner even. And one of the segments is after you've done the preliminaries is straight run down the hill, and you lift up. You basically the idea is tip one foot to little toe edge side of your foot, and then that ski is lighter, obviously, because you're lifting it and tipping it. And then obviously you're going to get balance change over to the other ski and the other foot, and you have to stand on it because you got the other one off the snow a little bit. And when people get all flustered about what do you mean little toe edge? I never talk about little toe edge. Oh, what's this little toe edge stuff? It's like instead of just going with it and listening and learning, they're already criticizing before they've even learned what's going on with the system. And so anyways, I just want to clarify some of that. That's just the entry level idea of what people normally don't do, because most people do this first to go that way. And we don't. We go this way first, and then we go this way, which means we're activating the inside ski to get a turn towards the direction or the same side the inside ski is on. And what happens when you do that is you have to really switch your balance to the other foot, or else you're not really managing. We call this the free foot because it's free from the snow and free from the ground. And because it's light, you can move it. And if you go like this, you're standing on both, and you can't move this inside one. You're kind of locked in, right? You're kind of hamstrung. In other words, you're really. Then you have to edge this one, and your body doesn't move side to side when you do that. You're in between your feet, and you're kind of like stuck. So anyways, so I just wanted to clarify that part. But in a rounded turn that connects one turn to the other, we use the same movement, but we don't do it straight on the fall line, because that's introduction for the learner who's never done this before. And if you're a skier who can make linked turns or some form of a linked turn, even if it's got a wedge in it, if you start your next turn with lifting and tipping the old foot, the standing foot, you transfer again. You transfer your weight to the other foot. When you do that, you have to. There's no other place to stand, right? When you lift one foot, where are you going to stand? It's going to be on the other one. But it's funny. Observers just don't make that connection because they're not trained to do that. They don't realize that's a consequence of a movement called the Phantom Move. Now, some people have caught on to that right away, like Lito Tejada Flores and some other teachers who have also written books about skiing. And so when I first was working on this, I hadn't really had the idea to work on it per se. I was watching ski racers, world class, we're talking Austrian ski team, US ski team, top level international racers. And they happened to be around my ski area where I was running races for a NORAM race where the Austrian team happened to be the US team, Canadian team. And I had worked with some of the Austrians before in Austria on the glacier. So anyways, I was working with Christian Orlansky, who I had met before in Austria. And he was over for these races in the US. It was in the East. And he was still skiing with a turn at the end where he would move this ski into the big toe edge to stand on it. And, Phil Mayer, Steve Mayer, and even Stenmark they were still pushing off the old stance foot and moving towards this big toe edge. And then, however, whenever there was a weird occasion, the Mayers brothers, or Phil in particular, would do like sort of a weighted release where he stayed on the old ski and then kind of started tipping it and then placed the other one down, which was an evolution of a better way to start a turn, actually, than displacing this ski slightly and stomping on that big toe edge. So, and if we go back in history further, which is fascinating if you watch it, Jean-Claude Killy was already doing that. And very few people picked up on it. And that was the genius of Jean-Claude Killy. He was doing things nobody else was doing. And when I watched black and white old movies of Killy skiing, after the fact that after I invented the movement, what I called it the touch turn drill at first. I didn't even have the word phantom move in it. And the reason I called it the touch turn drill was because when I had my athletes lift this ski, touch the other boot with the lifted foot and tap it, and they had to tap it before they could start the turn. So when they tapped this one, I had them tipping this to the little toe edge side, which is this side, right? With the little finger here, your foot and your finger have a little finger and a little toe. So you tip it towards that little toe side of the whole length of the ski and the boot, of course. And then when you do that, it changes the whole dynamic of skiing because you're using the stored energy in the ski, you're using the gravitational pull, and you're getting the energy from the angles you had in the previous turn to help you flip over to the other side really early and get on those early edges. And you don't lose the top of the arc, so you're in balance over the new outside ski before you even get close to the gate. And if you ever watch Marcel Hirscher in slalom, when he was winning one World Cup after the other, and one World Cup overall, 8 in a row, in fact, he was doing that all the time. And so was Michaela Schifrin, for that matter. And so, when I had written about the phantom move in my first book in 1997 when it was published. And the book was all about the phantom move. And Lito and a bunch of people picked up on it, but the industry didn't, ski instructors didn't. It became a real sort of a cult thing, in skiing, with an inner circle of people. And we just said, okay, we're going to work on the phantom move. And people started going, okay, we're going to do the phantom move. So the phantom move is just a piece of the release that we teach in PMTS. And PMTS stands for Primary Movements Teaching System, which is the system that I invented. And in that system, we changed the game in skiing. Everybody in ski teaching, even today, it has not changed. Start with a snowplow, go to the outside ski, steer the outside ski, grip with the outside ski. The inside ski, it's an afterthought. At the end of the turn, if you have time, slide it back in. We don't do that. We don't have to slide it in because it's never slid out. So we don't slide it in. So that's the big difference here. And what I'm teaching with the phantom move, that is a natural movement, but you have to introduce it first, and then it becomes a lot more natural. It becomes way more efficient. You're not using as many muscles. You're not twisting the ski. You're not using big rotary muscles, big muscles in your thigh to rotate or twist the ski into the turn. You're using the side cut, which is so beautiful about the shape skis when they came out. The phantom move even got better. I was teaching on straight skis to racers. When the shape ski came out, oh my God, that's why now we have a beautiful system with direct parallel. We don't teach any of that. wedge turn, wedge Christie, wedge, narrow wedge, wide wedge, steer the inside foot. It's just a lot of redundant, basically inefficient movement.
Yeah,
So there you
when
go. That's the story. That's the story. And then so the rest of it that goes back to Christian Orlansky, when I started teaching him to use that, his coach was Hans Pum, and Hans was, the NORAM coach or a B team coach in Austria. And when he went back to Austria with the team, and then the year after, he was promoted to the head coaching job of the Austrian ski team, the technical team. And he called me and asked me if I would come to Austria and start coaching the Austrian team with him, be an assistant for him. So, that he was impressed by basically that movement that he hadn't seen before. So here's the Austrian technical coach of the B team. That was something he really wanted his athletes to learn more about. And they did, I can tell you. Günther Matter, and then numerous other Austrians after that started using that movement.
Because you'd been teaching it to your athletes, your junior athletes, you were developing kids and preparing them for the World Cup up to the age of 16. Right. So you've been doing that for years. And then when you worked across, and the whole reason was it was to build up your efficiency, wasn't it, in the race course? And the kids, you used to have the kids doing it at low speeds, and if they didn't get it right, they couldn't go train in the gates. Like, can you talk us through the whole process?
My kids had to have good technique. Well, I mean, look at it from a logical standpoint. If you don't have the technique yet to ski full-length courses, what you're going to do is use your bad technique and reinforce it, right? You're just going to use it better. Use bad technique better. I mean, that's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? But it's what happens. And when so my kids had to learn how to use the phantom move before I let them run long gates at full courses. I had them do short courses on one ski and other techniques that I used so that they could get into the long courses already knowing what they had to do to use the correct technique, which reinforced the right movements. And then the progress was totally different. Like, I had one kid, Mike Makar, who at 14 and under, Western Region Championships won the slalom by 5 seconds.
Yep. And then if you could take it down to slalom, someone like a Dave Riding is a 10 out of 10 from our book in terms of technique and using the phantom move, even though he probably doesn't even know he's using it.
Well, he definitely has an approach that shows it on every turn. So he may not, whether it's conscious or unconscious, he's definitely doing that. And so was Hirscher. So is Clement Noel. So are all, in fact, I have a video we're going to do on our next program for the Academy with Schwartz, who is, a world junior champion at every event. He won. Marco won. I mean, just unbelievable. He won the downhill, won the Super G, won the GS, and won the slalom at the Junior Worlds. And he's also a champion on his own right. He won the Globe and, in slalom and so on. But the top slalom skiers are all using that move. You can see it time after time. Mikhail Shiffrin uses it all the time. And, here's another, I have to point this out because this is what happens. Ski instructors, when Michaela doesn't lift the ski, she's still using the phantom move because she's shortening the leg and pulling it up, but the ski's still on the ground. So fundamentally, you evolve it to all different ways of using it, but it's still using that movement to get out of the turn. And when instructors tell me, oh, well, she's not picking the ski up and tipping towards the little toe edge, but she is. She's just not lifting it up. She's still tipping that one over to the little toe edge. She's not steering it. She's not steering the other one either. So neither are all the other. You watch Camilla Rush. You watch any of the top slalom women. Everybody's using this in slalom. If you're not using it, you're not there. The guy who's not is this guy Yule from Switzerland. He's got a wide stance like this wide, and he's just not even in the game anymore. You can't just keep up with that kind of technique.
Yeah. And for you originally invented it as an inefficiency blocker, wasn't it? Like you were watching your kids and they were going too early on the big toe, and you were like, well, how can I create something?
Well, I was not just watching my kids. I was watching everybody who raced in a certain race, and I was watching how the technique deteriorated as you went through the numbers. As the best skiers start at the beginning in ski racing, and then as the skiers are less proficient or haven't evolved to the as good as the top skiers, you can see the difference in their technique deteriorating as the numbers go up. Number 1 to 5 or 10 or 15 ski pretty well, and then all of a sudden at 25, 35, it drops off pretty sharply, and you can see what they're doing. And the ones who are skiing slow are doing more of this, and the ones that at the beginning are doing more of that. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure this out. You just got to be observing things. Well, the other part of that is that when people watch me ski, and when I'm demonstrating especially, and I'm not trying to emphasize something, really point it out, I'm just skiing down, they can't figure out how I'm turning. They can't figure out how the ski turns, because I'm not making any big movements. I'm not making any like real emphatic kind of things that, well, you've seen some of the runs that I do when I do, basic parallel on a blue-green slope. And you go, where's that coming from? I don't see flexing. I don't see extension. I don't see rotation. I don't see steering. He's just making turns. And so it's sometimes for me, I have to like exaggerate and overdo it to kind of demonstrate it, because it's so hidden within me. And that's why it's called the phantom move, because it's a phantom thing that you can't really see unless you know what it is. And then I broke it down for them and I explained to them. And then what they tried to do was explain the physics involved in the movement, right? So then I added the pullback to it, which is another part of what we invented, is the foot pullback move, which nobody did, and we didn't have a special name for it. We didn't have a fancy name like the phantom move. We just said, when you lift the foot, make sure you pull it back as you tip it, because I'd already discovered that if the foot is out in front of you in a ski turn, in other words, if this foot is out in front, you're turning that way, you can't tip that ski over, because biomechanically your leg doesn't rotate. Your femur has to rotate when you tip to get the angle. And if your foot isn't back under your hips, you don't have the range of motion to do it. The muscles don't work, and your femur in the socket doesn't go in that direction when the ski boot and the ski are out in front of you. So I demonstrated to them, when you lift, you have to pull the foot back. And what that causes is not only a slight angle and also a slight bias toward, with a shape ski, toward that direction. And they were really trying to, with all their PhD backgrounds, trying to figure out what was going on here in the body and the kinetic chain, because PMTS is primary movements, and we're starting at the bottom with the foot, the ankle, and the boot and the ski, and then the kinetic chain up the body. In other words, the muscles and the joints going up the body. If you're bouncing on the other foot, they then respond to those movements and create a ski turn. I mean, I didn't have the idea of eliminating it when I discovered that I could use the movements that I was teaching all the way down to the beginner level. And, I had to re-engineer or reverse engineer the expert movements for people to actually, ski and learn safely from the beginning with parallel. And, there was a technique called the Natur technique, which is an Austrian named Walter Fugger, who was at Jay Peak in Vermont. And he had in the 60s, he had a technique called the Nature technique. And it was long skis, and they did a lot of hopping around, but they tried to teach direct parallel. Now, if you were really athletic and a really strong and in a good balance skier, a person. You could learn how to ski that way, but it wasn't very successful. So it went away. And I didn't want to go down that road. I didn't want to, invent something that only athletic people could learn. So I evolved it so that anybody could learn it. Now, but you see, we had a big advantage over regular ski school and regular ski instructors. And that advantage is understanding alignment in ski boots. And regular ski instructors don't do that. And regular ski schools don't do that. So if you're in rental boots and you've got crooked legs, crooked feet, you don't have range of motion in your ankles, you've got a stance that's not suited, that boot doesn't give you a stance that's suited for your balance, you're going to really struggle. So that's why, they stick with the snowplow, because with the snowplow, you can kind of, muddle your way through. If you want to stick with it, it's going to take you a long time. But if I take that same person and put them in a reasonable pair of ski boots and I do the alignment on that ski boot and set it to that person, you can be skiing parallel in one day. Yeah, I taught tennis for years, and the same thing in tennis. I have a photographic memory for movement and the individual who's doing the movement. And I have a recall from my own movement way back when I was ski racing and training. I remember runs. I can remember runs and things I did to change things within a run on a certain day. And I remember the specific turns. So when I watch people skiing, it imprints. And I remember exactly, like you mentioned, Ben and also Ken.
Yeah.
Those two guys and a bunch of the others, that are in the academy. Vino and Alex.
Yeah, and Jeff. Yeah.
And Jeff, yeah. And I see them skiing once. I see them skiing 3 turns, and I can tell you what they're doing, whether it's alignment or whether it's movement based, the issue. And then 4 months later, 6 months later, I see them skiing again. I go, oh, wow, you really changed that movement that you had trouble with before. And it's so obvious to me.
Yeah.
And I thought that everybody had that ability early on when I was coaching. And I would think that, most coaches, obviously, they must know how to do that, and they use it. Well, it turns out they don't. And it turns out very few people have that ability. So I'm lucky that I got that somewhere along the line. Well, my last book was called The Essentials of Skiing, right? And so that was like kind of the culmination of everything we'd done with the first 2 books and taught people to ski with it, and all levels. We're not talking just experts. We're not talking racers. We're talking intermediates and beginners. There are ski schools teaching direct parallel. So my system of direct parallel. So what happened was I had figured out that here are the 5 key things that we teach. And in those 5 essentials that we've defined clearly in the book and in the videos that we've produced with the book, you have within them the movements that build each essential. So not only do we have a progression that goes from beginner to world-class skier, we also, within each essential that we've identified, we have a progression for each movement. So it gives a coach or somebody who's trained to be one of our instructors or coaches an amazing amount of tools to convey the movements. And once you grasp how that works, there's nothing else like it. This is why I have to chuckle when I get instructors coming on my Facebook pages and other places, and on a forum somewhere where we're talking about PMTS, and they have no idea what PMTS is all about. They don't know within each essential. They don't know the progression, but it doesn't fit into their thinking. So immediately it's, oh no, we don't. Some of them say, oh yeah, we already use that. Or some of them say, oh no, that won't work. So, but instead of learning it, reading it, getting up and, being familiar, at least knowing the basics, they just criticize. So I just chuckle and I just let them go, do their thing. Yep. Well, I always like to introduce things and kind of break it down to the movement that really makes it happen for you at every level. And when some of our our followers or members think they have figured it out and know it, and then we break it down even more, they continue to go, wow, I never even thought of thinking it that way. I never even thought that that might be a way to access the next movement or the connection to the next movement. And I love doing that, because to me that's fun, is breaking it down. And to people who are watching and listening and using what I'm saying, they're just like going, oh my God, I got to go out and do that. I got to go out and try that. It's like so current right away. They can go out right away, especially the guys who have indoor facilities,
Yeah.
and the next day they go out and ski it, or even that afternoon or evening. And yeah, I think we never stop. It's never too late. We have people in our 60s who are just improving year after year, and referring back to our camp is not just a one-time deal. You don't just do there are so few people who come to one camp.
Yeah.
Because once they experience one, they go, oh my God, I've got to do this more. I've got to do it again. Because every time I do it, and then see what people don't realize is that there's practicing doesn't make perfect. Practicing makes habits. Only perfect practice makes perfect skiing or efficient skiing. And when you learn and start using the phantom move and the other components, is if the phantom move is basically the movement used in transition from one turn to the other. But there are other things that you have to happen in between those changes of edges and turns, right? And those are building as well. So, counterbalance and counteracting, pullback, fore-aft balance, those are all incorporated. Everything is incorporated, and each one has a progression. And it depends on, we have an acronym that we use, and it's the SMIM. And SMIM stands for single most important movement. And for each skier, we can pick out the single most important movement that is holding you back from getting to the next level, next stage in your skiing. And when you achieve that single most important movement, then you go to the next one and the next one. And one may be fore-aft balance, and then the next one may be counterbalance, and the next one may be counteracting. And then it may be tipping. And, those are some of the essentials, right? And so you have a program, you have a plan, you know what you're doing when you're out there. You're not guessing at you're not going, did I steer enough? Am I steering now? Am I steering the ski enough? Am I turning the ski enough? Well, I'll leave it with this one last thought. In PMTS, we don't turn our skis. We teach you how to make the skis turn you. And that's a completely different way of skiing. When the skis turn you, you're not working as hard. You're following the skis. You're on top of them. You're in control of your skis. You're in balance over your skis. And you're riding with the ski. You're not trying to catch up to it when you try to turn the ski. That's what you do when you try to turn the ski, because you're moving the platform underneath you away from you when you try to turn the ski, whereas we stay with the platform. That's a huge distinction between regular ski school, traditional instruction, and PMTS direct parallel.